This afternoon we have another but very different prophetic speaker with us. Apparently Bishop Christopher first met Azariah at Millwall Football Club. But no, they weren't watching football. It was actually a national day of prayer. And I know that Azariah has just returned from the Greenbelt Festival. I know some of you that I've spoken to today have been at Greenbelt. Azariah's been there too. And I read Azariah's book, his first book, Ghost Ship, at the beginning of my curacy. And it gave me the confidence to be me. It gave me the confidence to resist being moulded by the expectations of others in order to fit in. And if you're in any doubt or find it hard to recognize institutional racism in the Church of England, I recommend that you read Ghost Ship, because Azariah retells true life stories and poems full of vivid imagery which will call you to attention. Azariah is unafraid to speak truth to power, but in compelling ways which I know will keep us awake at this time in the afternoon when many of us would really like to have an afternoon nap. But Azariah will engage us with some much-needed reflection on the church. Missing pieces lead to missing peace. Why no one should be left behind for a Christ-centered church to be outward-focused. I invite you to please put your hands together as we welcome Azariah Franz Williams.
Good afternoon. So we have 50 minutes together, but I would want to remind you again that you do have agency. I offer you the permission, if you need it, in a moment to walk out and to have that nap that some of you might feel you want. Catch up with old or young friends, take a breather, absorb the import of what you already heard. And if you're feeling a fish and chip-induced coma coming over you and cannot resist, don't. I mean it. I've nothing new to add that you don't already know somewhere in your bones. So if you want to grab the opportunity for some stillness, write in your journal, get some fresh air. I believe this is recorded, so maybe you might be able to catch up on it later. There's no slides, so you're not missing anything visual. So in a moment, I'm going to ask us to stand, turn to the folks around us, and describe what we've had for lunch. And during that minute, if you happen to the conversation leads you out the door because you need a bit of time and stillness, that's absolutely okay with me. And at the end of that time, I will say hey and expect us all to shout back ho. I will say let's, and then you shout back go. Let's practice that. Hey, go. Let's go. So please stand, have a moment, share what you've had for lunch, and think about whether you're going to stay or go. Hey! Let's. Hey. Let's. I wonder, who are your people? If you find your people, you found your power. If you find your power, you'll discover your purpose. A greater sense of purpose will enliven yourself to live, laugh, love, and hope beyond just trying to cope. Far above the petty fights, you will be salt and you will be light. If instead of coming here to hear excellent speakers, I'm offering you your Twitter comments for later, by the way. If the organizers had said, this is a day where you can do all the things that bring you the most life, apart from listening to me, of course, what would you find yourself doing? Would you be listening to great music? Perhaps you'd dust down your trumpet and make your own. Maybe you'd be in nature with others with your zoom lens capturing a rare bird in flight. Maybe you'd be tapping out that novel you know is just beyond the threshold. It could be you're getting yourself arrested protesting with Extinction Rebellion or Just Stop Oil, telling the truth about the planet. Some of you would be creating the conditions for moments of intimacy, attending to the weeds in the garden, putting on the lycra for that intimate moment again. No. On this occasion, you're going for a run. Or simply making time for yourself, curling up with a good book, a favorite newspaper or magazine. How do the things which bring you life and the people who bring you hope and joy, how do those places where you can be yourself fit together with your ministry as you understand it? Often we are missing peace because we're missing pieces of our own God-given lives. Aspects of ourselves we cannot fit in during our working week, so we seek to cram it in all into the day off. But we all know we need recovery time before discovery time. Lo and behold, if we're one of the clergy, a funeral comes in, or we check our emails, a social media feed inflames our thoughts, we fall into survival mode. The funding application just won't write itself. The terrier needs updating. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself. But did you spot I used the word working week? I think our calling and vocation is about living. What does our living week look like? How does this week bring me and others life? How can we make making a living really live? How can most of our days be days on, not just a longing for the day off? When we are missing peace in our own lives, we cannot offer it to others. If we lack joy in our own experience, we cannot manufacture it. I remember in my first parish working in a group of housing estates and feeling overwhelmed. I'm a highly sensitive person, so overwhelmed comes with the territory. I was out of clergy garb and pottering about the church. I noticed a steady stream of folks going past the open door of the church. It was food bank day. They were heading to the community centre further up the road. I peered out into the street and spotted a tall, slim man looking quite wild, pounding up the street. He had something going on which was otherworldly. I suddenly felt dread. I had a premonition that before he went to the food bank to get his shopping, he'd be popping into the church. So I pushed the door a little bit more closed, walked backwards into the gloom to retreat. My instinct was correct, however. The door was opening and he was bellowing. He walked into the church and I half hid behind the door which led to my office. Really did. I underestimated my size and my girth betrayed me. Some part of my body announced my presence. "He's over here hiding from you." I sheepishly wandered out, and he said, "I'm looking for the priest. Are you the cleaner?" He'd offered me an out. My mum was a cleaner. I was sure I could pretend, but I hesitated too long and admitted it was me, and we both looked slightly crestfallen. I struggled to hold him because I was struggling to hold myself or to be held. On other occasions, I've been the one lacking the warm welcome of an ambassador of God. There was a burly white chap some years ago who almost put me off the church altogether. I wonder if he knew his people. Were his needs satisfied? You cannot give what you don't have. Let me relay this tale of the cat in the hat. It is a poem that I wrote for the National Cathedrals Conference, which I think works here. I approached this moment feeling tight, feeling loose, looking for rhymes as a black Dr. Seuss. I remember my school trip to York Minster one year. Outside, the building beautiful. Inside, I felt it was austere. I had had a bad haircut. So being conscious of myself, that day I collected my hat off the hallway shelf. I was the black boy cat in the black boy hat. I entered the minster, excited with my peers. A thick-set white man approached me, reddening in the ears. "I'm sorry, you can't wear that hat in here." Meow. As rouge flooded my cheeks, I bit my lip, willing my eyes not to leak. My hat was my protection, my shield against scorn. His challenge left me divided, embarrassed and torn. As I entered God's house, my teenage worries amplified. The man found a shy guy who just wanted to hide. It was God's house that didn't include me. There's a criteria I couldn't meet. My bad haircut, a bad hair day, I was left out of the place I went to pray. The cat in the hat left the minster dejected. The removal of the hat led to removal of self. I felt rejected and put myself on the shelf. So wearing this hat is to include that little guy. In God we're all accepted. I want to counter the lie. So wear your hat, even wear your hood. It doesn't mean that you're bad or that you're good. It's not that you're some monster clothed in sin. It's just another form of vestment some of us choose to robe in. The verger had so adapted himself to the context, he saw a pest instead of a pilgrim. I think we can miss pieces that God is sending us to change us, reform us, form us, and transform us. Our missing piece arises from those missing pieces. You need to have an eye for it. If you learn to include yourself, maybe it's easier to learn to include others as well. We often take ourselves out of the equation. I wonder why things don't add up. 15 years ago, 25,000 people gathered in a football stadium. 25,000 people gathered to pray as part of the National Day of Prayer. I was working as a student worker in Peckham and had a ticket to be part of the mighty throng. As I neared the stadium, a journalist was leaving, spotted me looking lost, and offered me his press pass, which gave him privileged access to the VIP area and a gentler way, which for an introvert was bliss. I grabbed the card with relish. I made my way upstairs to the hospitality area at Millwall Stadium. Wandered out to the seating area, plate full of little sandwiches in triangles, as if cutting them into little triangles fools anyone. You getting any more? I sat down feeling pleased with myself. There was a man sat along from me who hadn't noticed at first. He studied me and then offered me three things: his name, a kind smile, and a handshake. Back before we distrusted handshakes or surreptitiously applied hand gel. Hello. I took all three of his gifts before returning my own. We fell into easy conversation. which led to beginnings of a friendship of sorts. This man took an interest in my desire to pursue ordination and promised to support me through the process, get me through my time in theology college. He was the Bishop of Woolwich then and the Bishop of Southwark now. Hence, perhaps, part of the invitation to address you today. I've been known by him for a decade and a half. He patiently prayed and listened as I brought my questions and my musings, acting as a spiritual director until his ascension to Southwark. The frequency of contact has diminished, but the mutual warmth of feeling has persisted. He, I believe, saw a missing piece in the church family and extended a welcome. Your bishop never asked for anything in return. He made himself available not for me to be a part of his story, but to support the story that was emerging beyond me. And for that, I'm grateful. A number of powerful people I've encountered within the church would like to mold or morph us into versions of themselves, a version of them. But I am more them than them. I recently came out as a low-frequency queer. Don't tell anybody. Having a feminine side, spilling into having part female inside. I feel I'm part girl. A more we than me reality. Somewhere, somehow non-binary. I'm also neurodivergent, having dyslexia and dyspraxia. I see different things in different ways. I need safe people who can understand and undergird the we, he, they of me. However, when people like your bishop move on, you can feel exposed. There's a sense of shielding and protection with having people we connect with. But sometimes when the person goes, so does your sense of power. So you need something of your own too, on your own terms, with your own resources. A desire to share something with you that probably you already know within your marrow. In my view, our institutions can be cold and hard. Warm and open individuals can help us stay alive to ourselves and others and transform our experience of those institutions. They're the living stones, but when they go, so are the conditions that we can have to thrive. Maybe we are meant to organize our lives in such a way to encounter God and others and ourselves more readily and with greater expectation. We are called to be holy. By that I mean distinctive within, not distant from our society. Set apart to God, but not set apart from the world around us. We are to be the leaven, the bread of the earth. There are those God has prepared within her world who are willing for you to be all that you can be, missing pieces leading to missing peace. Very often, we are missing parts of ourselves. The theologian Frederick Bruckner said, "The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." In your sense of ministry, do you feel deep gladness, or is it more a sense of sadness? Does the world deep hunger encountered the satisfied you or the starving version of you? Like the food bank man found in me. Maybe you're hungry for love, recognition, maybe just a hug to be heard and respected. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. We are invited to be salt and light. We already are salt and light, just as we are right now, as we preserve the sacred and live in public ways for others to follow. People are drawn to our light right now. You are extraordinary. You are exhausted. You help others find and navigate difficult settings and situations, whilst at times feeling yourself to be lost. It's the contradiction of a wounded healer. It's a blood transfusion as we offer to our others based on the blood transformation Christ offered us. We remember the exhaustion and the sense of lostness and forget about our extraordinary natures. Forget that we are beacons to so many who see our lives as we live them out in public. When we forget in this way, our insecurities have more power over us, and we retreat looking for safety within our churches and the security and simplicity of the established rhythm and routine. But I think our churches should be the pit stops, not the full stops of our existence, not just for our congregations, but for all of us. Keeping our best gifts for and with Christians within our churches, maybe keeping the salt in the shaker and the light under a bowl. I'd like to suggest we can seek to minister and amongst Christians in the church world, but if we do that exclusively, it could distort us and separate us from our various tribes that God has also called us to minister to and amongst, and for those places that God would have minister to us. When we simply try to fit into our institutions as they are, there may well be some discontent and a sense of a disconnect as we change ourselves, go through a formation to fit into the established mold. But it's likely that those that you are called from and called to may not make the same journey, nor the same accommodation, and maybe nor should they. As many of our churches, along with institutions, fall into patterns of decline, we've begun to forget about kingdom, which is open-ended, vulnerable, porous, and motley. And in our fear and defensiveness, we can harden into empire, which is closed, rational, hard, and uniform. The truth-tellers in our society declare that institutional church is hardening into a form of empire. Think of the biblical depiction of Egypt, a place initially of feeding and favor in the era of Joseph, followed by fetters and fear in the era of Moses. Are we going to lend Egypt assistance or mount a resistance? My question is, do we want to get into Egypt or out of it? Are we going to perpetuate Christendom or Christ's kingdom? Can we, without guilt or fear, properly enter into wider society with no agenda other than to encounter the goodness of God in the earth, which is the Lord's? Are we conditioned to be Josephs, devoted to empire and deluded within empire, or released to be Moses, disrupting empire and departing empire? L.P. Hartley, in his book The Go-Between, opens his novel with the words, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there." It may be my favorite opening line. I'm drawn to the overlap and interweaving of the temporal and spatial realms. I'm struck by the juxtaposition of the past and is, the ongoing overshadowing presence of the past in the present. Although there is an intangibility to what one is perceiving, there is a distance between them and us, a multiverse where time has fought down parallel pathways, stories concurrent and yet separate. A hated and envied younger sibling searched for his brothers at his father's behest. Trampling across fields, the daydreamer will descend into a nightmare and wake up in another time as another man. Betrayed by those who should have protected him and presumed dead by the one who loved him, his story will be erased. However, he will ensure the maintenance and preservation of every other story. The archetypal journey relayed to us in Genesis is a distorted rite of passage. The young man is forced into a new world as the Midianite slave traders leave with lighter purses, and Joseph's brothers will leave the scene with a heavier conscience. He will battle mortal and moral dangers to be rewarded with a custodial sentence. He will become Egyptian, suppress emotion, keep calm, and carry on. A method actor, an undercover agent, linguistically and aesthetically so within his legend, he could lose his coordinates had not those coordinates been inscribed in his heart and imprinted in his dreams. We close our eyes as we softly hum the Lloyd Webber musical score. Yet Joseph had no such luxury. His eyes had to remain wide open to the managed terror inside and the vast hunger he witnessed outside with the growing famine. He had to become a successful stranger. He had to demonstrate loyalty to the system, pay homage to the Pharaoh, and win and maintain trust. He had to integrate within the system, prove himself again and again and again, ascend through the dirt he was buried under to emerge the victor and save the world. I liken the discernment journey sometimes to Joseph's journey. Joseph did not fit in with his family anymore. The pit was a type of death to what was. When we go into a discernment process, whether our ministries are ordained or lay, there is a sense of inevitability. There's a sense of call and vocation. There's often some launch pad away from what we have been doing and the person that we were. It can be both thrilling and disorienting as we move on for what is familiar, upheld by our dreams. For those who are ordained, there's a theological college, which can be like Joseph in Potiphar's house. You're learning the ropes, endure strange relational dynamics in your formation into the household of the powerful, an outpost of the empire. And curiously for some can feel like a form of incarceration, like Joseph endured. There's a profound disempowerment as you are watched and managed and given more opportunities, and not everyone makes it out alive. You begin to recover your gifts and prove your worth, and you move on and work for Pharaoh as their right-hand person. Transformation complete as you wield limited authority, then limited responsibility, as an incumbent perhaps. However, Scripture tells us a new Pharaoh who didn't know about Joseph came to power, and the people who were citizens multiplied and were seen as the enemy, and the formerly starved people were now enslaved. Joseph's legacy forgotten, the next generation asking, "Who am I? Where am I?" The great I am that I am would need a Moses to answer that question. Someone who realizes the task is no longer about getting into the system. It's about getting out of the system alive and taking what they learn and what they have earned to form a new form of society. In the story, once Joseph begins to acknowledge his trauma, he becomes profoundly divided. He softens towards his people from his home of origin and becomes a threat to his people who currently resource him. This leads to a form of segregation. The land of Goshen is where Joseph and his mixed heritage family and his family of origin are placed. It's a place of scrutiny, a secure, separated place, a place which got them out of trouble, but it becomes a doorway to another form of trouble. Are we being conditioned to be like Joseph or released to be like Moses? The Joseph story is one of male dominance and male spaces. There are stuck men. Jacob stuck at home, Potiphar stuck, Pharaoh stuck. Joseph goes from his father to problems with his brothers, to being taken by the Midianites, to Potiphar, to the jailer, to Pharaoh. The story of Moses starts with women. Women who can move between the worlds, the midwives, his mother, his sister, Pharaoh's daughter. They knew how to siphon power away from the sources that had too much to offer it to people who didn't have enough. Moses is there to be educated in the court in order to be a leader of a people he does not know yet. He is groomed for greatness, but his calling is to a new nation building, not old empire sustaining. When he and others leave Egypt, they request the family silver from their enslavers as reparation to found a new world. How can our churches be sites of radical hospitality? Can we reimagine the assets our parishes are to the benefit of those who surround us and to some extent are within us? Find your people and you'll find your power. Find your power, you'll discover your purpose. A greater sense of purpose, you'll be able to live, laugh, hope far beyond just trying to cope. Far above the petty fights, you'll be salt and you will be light. What do you really love to do? Remember, you are extraordinary. Who are your people? Some of them may be Christians, many of them won't be. When we live in binary boxes, in and out, good and bad, us and them, we rule out many good-hearted atheists as luxuries or distractions, and rule in too many so-called Christians as family we're bound to and have to love even though they're unkind. Be free to arrange our weeks, maximize our lives, our seasons and our times to maximize love. Are you a lover of walks in the countryside? What are your passions? It could be you adore your football team. Could it be that maybe you're a park runner or a parent of a toddler? Some of you are whiskey connoisseurs. Others of you are film buffs. Some of you have an eye for interior design. And given time, that's what inspires you. Some of you love visiting zoos, perhaps spotting giraffes, zebras, and the huge, massive elephant in the room, which is, how is any of this possible? Mate, I'm coming to the Diocese of Manchester. You've got a Labour city there and apparently a Scandinavian working week. My Archdeacon, Dean Bishop, would see me as a slacker if I tried to do the things that you said. If it weren't for the fact that in Manchester, you've got your umbrella up everywhere, I'd be on the next train back with you. So you think, it sounds good, this new life, doing things, having a living week. However, it seems unrealistic when we look at all of the things on our to-do lists. So how do you do it? Well, you could always lie. I worked for a church once that said, if you need to have time to play golf or tennis, you can tell it wasn't the church on the estate. Tell those around you that you're doing evangelism. If you've got an issue with lying, you could always try and sneak it in. What we often do is if we can create time, we replicate the thing we'd like to do within our parishes and call it mission. So when I was in my last parish, I liked to orchestrate film-related events because I love movies. Perhaps I could have gathered a group and simply just gone to the cinemas without the pressure of forcing cinema-goers to turn up on a Sunday, which is how I used to operate. Do you remember the film The Passion of the Christ, the Mel Gibson movie? I went to see The Passion of the Christ in Liverpool. At the end, instead of allowing the filmmakers and the powerful story to do its own work, I thought I could do one better. So during the credits, I stood up, cleared my throat, and said, "Hello, excuse me, hello there, excuse me. I would like to say that you've just watched a very powerful film. And this film has shown the love and sacrifice of Christ. And if you would like to learn more about that, meet me in the foyer afterwards." And then I sat down again and then went out to the foyer. Most people did this as they walked past me. Some very committed Christians came up and shook my hand and told me well done for that. But the zeal in their eyes, I thought maybe they need to be committed, actually. And then there was a young Asian lady who came up to me and we started talking. And because she was a brown lady, I thought, maybe she's part of another religion. I can poach someone from another religion onto our side. More the better. However, we swapped numbers and met a couple of times and realized she was more interested in me than Jesus. I want to encourage us to find others who love what we do and do it with them, whoever they are. Are there some of you who are open water swimmers? Is there a group you could be part of? Don't badge it as church, just badge it as life-giving. How did Moses do it? First, he had to have a new mindset. He had to become conscious of what it was like living in Egypt, what he could redeem and take and use, or what he had to leave behind. He also needed a mentor. So he went on retreat. He went to the wilderness, encountered Jethro. Moses, the son of enslaved people, grew up under Pharaoh's roof. Pharaoh, the epitome of the oppressive enslaving regime. Moses lived with a contradiction. He sat in Pharaoh's court, ate Pharaoh's food, wore royal clothes, and lightly shared some of the prejudices against his own people of origin. So what else you need? You need a mindset, you need a mentor, you need a mate, a partner, someone who you can share with and speak with, someone that you can go into the world with. You also need to be willing to channel the plagues, to disturb and disrupt for the sake of those who are held captive. Your people, your park runners, your reading group, your open water swimming friends, your pals on local allotment, the members of your dance class you attend, can you honestly envisage them engaging with the church as it is now? And by church, I mean the totality of our congregations and gatherings, not only our Sunday congregation. I wonder what it would be like if we had a mutuality of gatherings, not a hierarchy of gatherings, so that the toddler group, the lunch for local elders, had the same value of acknowledgement and resource as our Sunday Eucharist. But I digress. What does it look like to have a living week? I had a small example of that this year. I signed up and paid for a clowning and improvisation course. Now, I've done some clowning and mime before, for those live streams and things like that. You say, yeah, look at that, hey? Hey? It was all for the sake of mission. If I didn't reference Jesus, it wasn't seen as valuable. But this play course was fascinating because they were dreading having a priest on the course. On the course, there was a lapsed Catholic, a sweary clergy spouse, a lesbian, all who presumed I was going to judge them and cramp their style. It was a wake-up call to see myself and my vocation through their eyes. So I went into pastor mode and tried to foist a weird non-consensual chaplaincy on them. They didn't like it or need it. I gave it pretending to be the priest they expected me to be and simply sought to be Azariah. And in so doing, released my calling. I moved from a buttoned-up Joseph to a Charlton Heston beardy Moses figure. As I submitted to what was happening there, I found a freedom, and lo and behold, mission began to flow naturally and mutually as we all became sites of healing for each other. And as I was transformed, the church in their imaginations and hearts was also transformed. Moses became a disruptive force when he returned from the wilderness. The plagues challenged the gods of the time. If you enter a Moses mentality, the questions you ask, the projects and plans you will initiate will disturb the status quo. The last plague was the death of the firstborn. If you go full Moses, you will challenge the gods of the place that raised you and fed you. But you will only do so if you have another base. Hence, what do you love? Find yourself within the community that God has called you from and called you to. Whether or not the CV will ever be fit for purpose, I don't know. But whilst those who created or perpetuate the issues continue to deliberate, let's those of us who can liberate ourselves. We serve a God of liberation and complete emancipation. Bob Marley sang Marcus Garvey's words. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery, for none but ourselves can free our minds. There is a letter preserved of an enslaved man who escaped, and his old master wanted him to come back with his wife and kids when he discovered where he was and help maintain the plantation which was falling into disrepair. I've got a section of this letter here. Dayton, Ohio, August the 7th, 1865. To my old master, Colonel P.H. Anderson. Sir, I got your letter. I was glad to find you had not forgotten, Jordan, that you wanted me to come back with you and live with you again, promising to do better for me than anybody else can. Although you shot me twice before I left you, I did not want to hear of your being hurt. I'm glad you're still living. I want to know particularly what the good chances you propose to give me. I'm doing tolerably well here. I get $25 a month with victuals and clothing, have a comfortable home for Mandy and the folk. Call her Mrs. Anderson, and the children, Millie Jane and Grundy, go to school and learning well. They go to Sunday school, and Mandy and me attend church regularly. We are kindly treated. Now, if you will write and say what wages you will give me, I'll be better able to decide whether or not it's to my advantage to move back again. As to my freedom, which you say I can have, there's nothing to be gained on that count, as I got my free papers in 1864 from the Marshal General of the Department of Nashville. Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you were disposed to treating us justly and kindly. We have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send our wages for the time we served you. This will make us forget and forgive old scores and rely on your justice and friendship in the future. I served you faithfully for 32 years, and Mandy 20 years. At $25 a month for me and $2 a week for Mandy, our earnings would amount to $11,680. If you failed to pay us for the faithful labor in the past, how can we have little faith in your promises for the future? We trust the good Maker has opened your eyes to the wrongs which you and your fathers have done to me and my fathers, in making us toil for you generations without recompense. Surely there will be a day of reckoning for those who defraud the labor of his hire. From your old servant, Jordan Anderson. P.S. Say howdy to George Carter and thank him for taking the pistol from you when you were shooting at me. Our institution is dying and declining. Or is it transforming? Moving from caterpillar to butterfly? Are we in a chrysalis? Are you a Joseph formed into Egypt but inwardly broken? Or are you a Moses transformed out of Egypt but outwardly a token? Jesus, as a refugee infant, found a new version of Egypt. The place of slavery became a place of shelter, a pit stop, not a full stop, to the rest of his ministry. Being in Egypt, but not of Egypt. So find your people, you'll find your power. Find your power, you'll discover more purpose. With the greatest sense of purpose, it'll enliven yourself to live, laugh, love, hope far beyond trying to cope. Far above the petty fights, you'll be salt and you'll be light. Thank you for listening. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'm gonna be someone. I'm gonna give something. I'm taking it on. I'm taking it on. It's gonna be my life. I'm gonna live each day and each night. I'm taking it on. I'm taking it on. But I can't keep running. I can't So I'm gonna be stronger. I'm gonna be better made. I'm gonna give everything to bring me back again. I'm gonna be a brave soul that lives. Gonna leap at all those many chances that I miss. I'm gonna live beyond these fears and forms of cowardice that keep leading me on. I'm gonna shine like a beacon in the night. I'm gonna wrap my fingers around the stars tonight, 'cause I'm taking it all, 'cause I'm taking it all. But I can't keep hiding. I can't keep hiding. I can't keep running away. So I'm gonna be stronger. I'm gonna be better made. I'm gonna give everything to bring me back again. I'm gonna be stronger. I'm gonna be better made. I'm gonna give everything to bring me back again.